people at Honda seem to be flipping back through the recent history books and finding what they're missing out on. The most recent name that's caught their attention is the Transalp, so they released a new one of those. And now, after a 10-year absence in South Africa, Honda has brought back another famous name, one with a sting. It's the Hornet, the new Hornet 750. I never much liked the previous Hornet. It was simply a CBR600RR with all the zing removed. But this one could be something else entirely. Like the new Transalp, it's a completely new motorcycle. Like the previous Hornet, it is completely in the nude, with not even a little screen popping out in front of the dash. I quite like it. The looks are sharp, distinct, and yet neat, in a very sort of Honda way. And yellow is normally a Marmite colour, but it does slip in nicely with the Hornet theme. And then there's getting on to ride it. One word comes to mind.
This bike feels small. I mean really small. Like, I'm a short person, I can put both feet on the floor easily. And everything else, it just feels small, compact, sort of together. The sort of bike you can get through traffic very easily. The sort of bike you can get out of your garage very easily.
So far it's penciled in as a stylish commuter. That's what small motorcycles usually are.
And yet, for some reason, and Honda's very good at this, it's not uncomfortable, it's not cramped, there's plenty of legroom. The bars are not kind of sit up and beg, and at the same time not crouched over racing style. They're just sort of neutral. Everything feels sort of together.
And while riding vast distances on long open roads might not be ideal without any wind protection, the fact that it has none is somewhat better than if it had a little. Hear me out. No wind protection means your entire body is hit with a wall of wind, while having a little shield often takes that wall of wind and condenses it into a jet of wind striking you in the face, making it go from simply a bit uncomfortable to pure torture. While the previous Hornet was laboured with a muted CBR 604, the new 750 gets the same newly designed 755cc inline twin as the Transalp. Also, Honda could have put a plug in its singy voice, which sounds like a very grown-up and therefore very Honda thing to do. But this time round, they decided not to.
It's kind of weird having this sound. That one. This dark, this sort of low-down sonorous bark coming out of a bike this small. Bikes this small are normally sort of zingy. Not like this. It's like having a little Jack Russell barking like a Rottweiler.
Like the Transalp, the twin's crank is set at 270 degrees to give it more of a V-twin feel, something that's becoming more of a global trend these days. After all, parallel twins are more compact, cheaper to build, and easier to maintain than the complicated Vs. But people like the feel of the Vs, so we are essentially getting the best of both worlds. Like the Transalp, the Hornet pushes 90 horsepower and 75 Nm of torque.
This motor, yeah, 90 horsepower is not ridiculously fast, but the way it makes it, that twin kind of strength, grunt, it just makes 90 horsepower come alive so much more than it would in other motorbikes. On the Transalp, I said that inside the motor there's a giant ogre named Edward sitting there turning a handle. It's that kind of strength. And this motor is the same as that in the Transalp, except with much shorter gearing. So it's also got an Edward the ogre sitting inside it, except the handle he's turning is much easier. So he's going, "Rrrr." Edwards is having fun. Oh yeah. Top speed is north of 200, possibly 220, which is really not bad.
To help keep it upright, the Hornet hosts all the usual electronic gadgets, including a switchable traction control and the optional quick shifter That will go nicely with this gearbox that works well for a twin, not being clunky, but very definite about its gear changes. The chassis is also completely new, hitting the streets at 190 kilograms, with a new steel diamond frame, the sort of thing that's becoming more and more popular these days, as manufacturers seem to be moving their street bikes away from aluminium.
There we go, handling. Oh, ooh, that's fun. It's so light, so nippy. Turns on a dime. I love motorcycles that turn on a dime. And coupled with that engine, it's sort of not slow, not fast, but it's able to get you out of trouble and you're able to have fun of it. It's not fast enough to get you into trouble, but just enough to have a lot of fun with.
The brakes are from Nissan, and while they are not as precise as their more expensive Italian counterparts, they do a good job of slowing the bike down. The suspension is from Showa, which makes sense because Honda owns them. The rear hosts a single monoshock, while the forks make use of big pistons technology, but with no adjustments.
The front fork isn't the most sophisticated, but at the same time, if you how many people riding bikes like these really want to go one click on rebound to help mid-corner steering? None. And a shock like that, and a fork like that would be a good 40 grand more expensive. Nah, I'd rather have 40 grand.
So far, all has been peachy, but there are one or two little foibles. The TFT dash is based on that of the Africa Twin and shares a design with the Transalp. While it might be thorough, it's not exactly the easiest to read, with a litany of numbers everywhere. It also adopts the Transalp's new handlebar switches, including the new joystick, which I like muchly. But they have also put the hooter button in the most convenient location, and hidden the indicators right at the bottom. This is something owners will eventually get used to, after about 2 months of embarrassingly hooting at strangers every time they want to turn. Then there's the price, 179,000 Rand, which is a little bit higher than both I imagine Honda would like. But then, as it turns out, this could be a very solid investment.
This would be a great beginner's bike. And I don't say that lightly because I kind of hate saying that. It sort of means bikes that are beginner's bike kind of have there's sort of a connotation to it. They're kind of very easy to ride but a bit mundane. And the sort of thing that when a beginner rider starts getting more experience, they'll start getting bored. And then they want to move on to something else. And then obviously when you trade it in, you lose a lot of money and blah, blah, blah. It's not a great term. But this is a beginner's bike. And yet, I've been riding for nearly my entire life and I'm having an absolute blast. So this is more than just a beginner's bike. This is a beginner's bike that after 2, 3, 5, 10 years, it's a Honda, it'll easily last more than that. It's a bike you will still enjoy. And that, as far as I'm concerned, is the best kind of beginner bike.